Hi, I'm Catherine Alexander, founder of Bridge to Partnership and certified CIQ coach. CIQ stands for Conversational Intelligence, and it's a way that we've blended our neuroscience and our understanding of brain chemistry with how we relate to others, mainly through conversation. There's so much about our conversations and our interactions with others that actually gets in our way. So CIQ is a way to understand how that happens and to manage that. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about liminal space, because I think we're all in a liminal space. Now, you may be most familiar with liminal space because it's that time when you wake up where you're not really awake and not really asleep. So you're aware that you're dreaming, you're aware that you're not awake, but you're not aware of your surroundings. And in that space, magical things can happen. Things come up, or you are revealed. You discover things that maybe have been below your level of consciousness, but suddenly are free to appear. Sometimes it's pictures or short dreams, or it can be all sorts of things, insights. It's a magical time. And so I'm suggesting that since we're all in a liminal space, we're all being held in abeyance from what we have previously considered to be our normal life, to see that as an opportunity to really take the potential that this space offers us, to rethink and reframe how we're going to move forward once we wake up. We're seeing such changes in the earth. Suddenly we can see stars. We can see the horizon without that gray haze on top of it. We're finding animals, from armadillos to mountain lions to hippos, are revisiting cities and walking through streets because they're quiet without people. So there's a bid by nature to come back and engage with us in a new way, if we would let it. But to do that would require some major changes in our behavior. We're seeing for the first time what happens when we don't use a lot of oil. And that's magical. It really gives us a taste of the kind of planet we can have forever if we choose. So how do we choose? What difference does our behavior, our everyday life processes have on shifting both the planet and our own life trajectory, our own career, our own family dynamics? This is a time to really begin to pay attention and experiment with changes that we can bring forward into the new time. Part of that has to do with generating trust. And this is where CIQ is so powerful, I believe. We really want to have trust. We want to be trusted. We want to trust others. Often we take that as an assumption. We assume that they trust us and we trust them. And that's true to a certain extent. But my experience with CIQ has been that we have habits of style, of presentation, that get in the way of that actually manifesting. So one of the gifts of CIQ is to talk about how to generate trust. So trust, the first letter is T, and that stands for transparency. So transparency has many different forms and shapes. It means that I tell you what I'm doing before I do it, so I don't surprise you. That's a form of transparency. I tell you who else I've engaged in this conversation. That's a form of transparency. And I tell you what I feel authentically. And I'm going to come back to this because I think being authentic is really the key to generating trust. And we're so good at not being authentic. We're so clever. We have such great habits that really put up a face between us and the rest of the world, even the rest of our family. Where we don't share, we are not vulnerable in that way. And vulnerability can be scary. It's a scary word. It makes it feel like you can be hurt. And that's the truth. You can be hurt. but by being willing to be hurt, by being trusting and putting yourself in a position where you can be hurt, you open up that conversation and you create a space where the other person can do the same. So being authentic is really at the heart, the foundational level of building trust. And authenticity gives you a transparency. It tells people what your emotional state is. When you say those words, I feel hurt. Now, that's not blaming. It's not making them responsible. It is communicating that those words have a response in you. That's all. And then you can say, if we can reframe that in this way, does that work for you? Then I don't feel hurt and I can hear you better. So it's your attempt, your vulnerable attempt to make sure that the communication that you're having is a real communication, not full of assumptions and illusions that we bring forward and don't validate. So that is a part of transparency. The U stands for understanding. And I hope you can see how they flow into each other. Because if I understand how you're emotionally impacted by my words, then I understand that I can say different things to you and connect perhaps at a deeper and clearer level. So we're coaching each other in how to be actually heard. It's one thing to know what somebody said, it's quite another to have it be meaningful. And actually, it's amazing how often we don't hear what people say. The truth is, you can only hear what you already know. And we connect everything that we take in to something we already understand and have experienced. If you can't do that, if there's no place in your experience for what you're hearing, there's no place for you to recognize it. And you'll hear the words, but it will not stick. You will not be able to say them back. You will have no memory of it. It will not exist for you. And these happen really quickly. So it's really useful to check for understanding in your conversation, to be able to say, am I right? This is what you said. Can I say that back to you? Is that what you said? To stop, especially when they're emotionally important conversations, to take the time to check that what you heard is what the speaker intended. And that's a dual responsibility. So the speaker can also say, would you tell me what I just said? And you will be awesomely shocked by how often people have no clue. And it's not because they weren't paying attention. It was because there was no hook in their own experience to attach it to. So be gentle in that reframing. Try and be clever and creative in your similes and metaphors to connect it with past experience. But you have to be able to take the time to check for understanding. Relationships is the R. And relationships for me at their core have to do with respect. We don't respect people very much. And I have to say, I can be just as dismissive as anybody else. When I don't agree with something, I can just dismiss that idea and therefore that person without a problem. But that's not appropriate. So I want to offer a model to you. My daughter and I often watch Midsummer Murders. It's an old show. It was on for 10 or 15 years, so there's lots of episodes to watch. And you have to have either Acorn or Prime, I guess. I don't know about the other services in order to see it. But it's well worth a couple of watches. And the reason why is because John Nettles, the main character, is so respectful. He is amazing in how his demeanor, his method of inquiry, his responses to attacks and all sorts of things are always respectful. They're never judgmental, they're never demeaning. Even if he has considerations, I'm thinking of his partner, and he's had many partners, but there was one particular partner in particular, Troy, that just did not seem to get what he was doing. And so he was both coaching and teaching in his comments. And even when you knew that he was floored by what Troy said or didn't say, he was respectful in his response. So it's a great role model to look at in terms of respect. And the last letter, T, is for truth-telling. Truth-telling can be a weapon. It can also be a way of really creating a trusting space. You want to know what people are really thinking. And that's where that authenticity comes through. When you're being authentic, you are telling the truth. It's not about right or wrong. It's about this is how you are present with the situation and this information in this moment. That's true. It's not fact-based as such. It is both fact and emotional based in a way because it's an honest statement. On the other hand, I want to sort of present a caution because there's a phenomenon now going through called call-out culture. And this is an attempt at truth-telling. It's unskillful. It's sometimes counterproductive, but its intent is to catch people when they do hurtful things in the moment. So people are accused of saying something that hurt somebody. Oh, well, when you use that word, that is really painful to me. They do need that information. It is truthful. However, is it respectful is the question. It can be respectful. You can take a person aside and say, you know, you have no way of knowing this, but those words have a real strong impact for me and for people like me. Because, so if you could use this phrase or pick a different phrase, we would be very grateful. That's truthful and it's respectful. Calling out is not necessarily respectful. So there are lots of ways to convey the truth that are both respectful and honest. And we're not skillful. So the other piece of creating a trusting relationship, in my view, is forgiveness. Forgiveness for yourself for being clumsy and off-putting and ridiculous and uninformed, unskillful, all those things. And forgiveness for the other for the exact same reasons. We're all in this together. We are trying the best we can. We're all experimenting, and we don't have the necessary skills to always be perfectly effective. So we don't. So just take it on the chin and move on. And don't feel like it's been deliberate or take it to heart or any of those kinds of things. Forgive. Forgive yourself. Forgive others. It's a good thing. So that's my thoughts on liminal space. I would love to hear your thoughts on liminal space. So let me know what you think. Thanks. Oh.